Hamadakiapi, Kola, Iuha, Ichicha, Oleam Petiki, Daya, Wa Uelo, Ani, Buju, hello, good day to everybody. I want to say good day to everybody who is in AM 950 listening land or Native Roots Radio, or if you catch us on our podcast channel at Native American Patriot Talk, powered by Native Roots Radio, or maybe you catch us online somewhere, broadcasting live at Lakota Law or Native Roots Radio or AM 950, wherever you listen or watch. I want to thank you because you've come through a long journey. This is episode number 10. And this is the final episode of Native American Patriot Talk for now. The substance and the cause and the reason why we engage the podcast in the first place is because there are certain of us among the progressive community, and AM 950 being the progressive voice of Minnesota, I've identified as a progressive for a long time. And I feel most of us who want to be in touch with our humanity, with a greater cause, with infusing divine principles, non-denominational, non-dogmatic, just walking life in a way that has been systematically denied to human beings for a long time, for millennia. I feel that we are a community and we are the majority. What is happening with this administration, what we seem to be prone to in these great United States of America, and we're about to celebrate, to commemorate, to commiserate 250 years. We are a complex lot, a broad and varied collective. Yes, there are separate demographics within that collective. Yes, we've learned to respect each other. We've learned that we are diverse and that there is strength, but we also share in that strength, this common ground, this commonality, that the people of the United States and of the working class of the world, the people who are born into a system wherein we have to cleverly figure out how to transact, how to turn our labor, our precious time on this earth, our skills, our talents, and those of us who we also want to achieve by merit. Don't believe everything, all the propaganda that's out there. If you are showing up somewhere and going to work, even if you're a small business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing very well, you're still having to trade your time, your labor, your skills, and your talent for a currency. And this particular currency, has been overtaken by the Federal Reserve for a long time. And just look at I'm talking about those of us who pay attention to how much gas costs, right? You hear us in the coffee shops, you hear us in the sport and wellness facilities, in the saunas and the cold plunges. You hear us talking about gas went from $4.50, $4.25 out here in the northern upper Midwest to under $4. And it's cause for us to celebrate. Those of us who are paying attention to how much eggs cost, right? How much milk is, how much the basic bare necessities are costing. Those of us who are drowning in student loan debt, and every single term, every 2 years, every congressional session, it seems there's people who are guaranteed, $200,000 a year and free healthcare for the rest of their lives. Every congressional representative and senators even get more than that. I think they're paid $225,000 a year, maybe $250,000. To some people, that's a lot of money. That's a grip of money. To some people, it's not really that much money at all. But the vast majority of us who could use some student debt relief, or who could use a clear, convincing, probable path to home ownership. Those who suffer when the interest rates go from 3%, I mean, all the way up to 9%, I've seen them at. And I've seen people borrowing where I live. Those of us who don't have guaranteed medical care, maybe you don't have a job that provides appropriate medical care, health care, dental, vision, all of that. Maybe you don't have a spouse that has that as part of their work package, and you want better. Maybe you've identified with the red team, with the Republicans for so long. Maybe you were born, maybe you bleed blue. You know what I mean? You were born into the blue side. But you've noticed that neither of our parties are showing up in the way that we want them to. That's the progressive community, the progressive people of the world who see wannabe despots, who see tyranny, who see fascism being very loud and obvious in trying to walk right into our lives and tighten the noose. Maybe some of us never felt those chains before. I have a lot of friends who've never even, they feel safe because ICE is out there targeting people that look like me. They feel safe because ICE is building massive detention facilities to house hundreds of thousands of targets. Who are those targets? They're not just illegals. If you pay attention, they're also political enemies. The far right calls them, the extremists of the right calls them the enemy within. And if you look, let's just start with what happened in Minneapolis, because my heart is always with Minneapolis, St. Paul, because of what I witnessed there, because of what we all went through. Those of us who showed up there, those of you who lived there, who didn't have a choice but to show up. As you saw, the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche, and I forget the U.S. attorneys from Minnesota, who made the announcement that they were targeting and trying to arrest and apprehend 15 people, and I believe they've arrested and apprehended maybe all 15 by now. I don't know. That was a couple days ago. But it's a story that I want to highlight for the benefit of our listeners, because it's right in line with what Trump and that team, Stephen Miller, whoever else is behind, now it's Mark Wayne Mullen. I don't know what kind of role that people really do play, who's really calling the shots. I don't know. Look at the Iran war. Look at how, like a roller coaster. It's almost like they're just trying to manipulate emotions and the market and see, they pay attention to those things. There's insider trading. It's not even secret anymore. They don't even pretend like, they're observing some level of ethics and avoiding conflicts of interest. That's not what they do. They do the exact opposite of that. But they've been talking a long time about the enemies of capitalism. And listen to their rhetoric. What do they call the radical leftist Marxists? I think that's what they call the radical Marxists. I mean, their stuff is from back in the McCarthy era, like from a long time ago, completely in my brain, obsolete and outdated dichotomies that were forced on us in the first place. They're no longer even relevant today. Who cares whether it's capitalism or communism? It's the same thing. Do I got to show up to work the next day? Well, then it's the same system. And people are struggling, but they propagandize. The extreme right propagandizes and says that they're going to root out and target and come down hard upon those who are anti-capitalist, anti-Christian, anti-capitalist, and anti-Christian, and anti-American. And that's why we call this show the Native American Patriot Talk, because it needs to be said loud and clear, and there can be no confusion that those of us in the progressive world who are classified as those on the left. You know, those of us who want to create a better world and don't want to fall in line with fascists and with tyranny. Those of us who recognize that tyranny is at our front door. It is not on our way. When they're going into Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they're arresting people for crimes like solicitation to commit a crime of violence, conspiracy to impede or injure federal immigration officers, interstate threats. I didn't read fully into what the nature of those, how they concocted that charge, but it just could mean using the internet to say, you know, hypercritical things about what we perceive to be a violation of law and order, a violation of constitutional order that must be observed. But the people, the conscious citizenry of this country do not have an enforcement mechanism. The United States Congress doesn't even have an enforcement mechanism. I don't know if our founding fathers, these founding fathers, if they contemplated a situation where the top elected official, the commander-in-chief, the top law enforcement officer, I don't know if they've contemplated a situation like this where it doesn't appear that he's loyal to the soil. It doesn't appear that they are aware of their duties within the Constitution, or they're aware of their duties insofar as they can manipulate the language surrounding national security and the upholding of law and order in order to further encroach upon and diminish the collective constitutional rights of American citizens. That's what's happening right now, not only in Delaney, at the Delaney prison camp, but in Minnesota, where up to 15 arrests have been made, charging people with conspiracy, charging people with destruction of government property, labeling them again as rioters, as Antifa, as unlawful. If you look at the press releases coming out of the Department of Justice, and yeah, technically taking matters into your own hands and doing what you think is legal and right to prevent tyranny, to prevent the violation of constitutional rights, is that illegal? Not in my eyes. But I'm not the Attorney General of the United States. I'm not the President of the United States. So who those people are really, really matters. And we have midterm elections coming upon us right now. They're already happening. And those states, the states need to hold close the mechanisms, the institutions, the control arms of the election process, because it's always under credible threat. Just listen to the things, listen to the what comes out of this administration. The idea of nationalizing, federalizing elections, creating some emergency to suspend or pause elections. If you read the Department of Justice, the language that they use, that is coming out from Mark Wayne Mullen, Director of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, that is coming out of Todd Blanche, that's the Attorney General. Stephen Miller pops in there a few times. But they say things like, we fully respect First Amendment rights, the First Amendment rights of U.S. citizens to peacefully protest. However, when protest crosses the line into violence or violence or criminal activity, I was trying to think of solicitation, because solicitation and conspiracy, those are words. Those are people talking to each other. Those are people they probably even captured the signal chats. I don't know, but these are not actual things that are happening. Solicitation and conspiracy are words of human beings. It's how I was charged. Everything that I'm speaking about happened to me, happened to us, happened to those of us who remembers the Stand With Standing Run, the Dakota Access Pipeline. There was almost 1,000 arrests up there. Everything that is happening, everything the Department of Justice is saying is exactly what the paramilitary contractors instructed and orchestrated the arms and institutions of our republic to say about us. That's another target, is an environmental dissidents, religiously driven indigenous jihadis. That's what we were called, eco-terrorists. So what is the difference between a terrorist and a patriot? Well, that depends on who's in office. The radical right already labeled me a terrorist. They're already, and if you pay attention to what's being called the rolling coup, it's extremely unnerving. And the lengths to which they go to get their guy and to get their narrative shift, to win the war of the narrative, they do think they will call us anti-Christian. You know, who wants to be anti-Christian? When the entire foundation, the legal and juridical and religious foundation of the founders, I mean, yeah, it was definitely Christian influence, but it was also influenced by other, wanting to be secular institution. But who wants to be anti-Christian or anti-Muslim? I guess the radical right wants to be anti-Muslim, but who wants to be anti-anything? Who wants to be anti-American? This is my country. I love America. These are our United States of America. Who wants to be again, anti-capitalist? So they frame it, they try to capture it. They'll get their guy. Take a look. I mean, you be the judge. I remember watching the feeds. Those of us who were paying attention religiously to what was going down in Minneapolis. There was a guy claiming to be Antifa, and he was doing live feeds in like this combat looking gear, and he was wearing Antifa like insignia and saying that he's Antifa and calling people to arms, asking people to grab their weapons, saying the time for talk is over, come to this particular square. I don't know if it was where Alex Preddy was murdered. I can't remember where, but I remember watching this thinking that guy's a Fed. That's an operative. This is how intelligence operators work. Not in some faraway oil theater. Right here in the United States, there are paramilitary operators, and now they're being completely open about it. I mean, look how Congress was locked out of their own house. But what I'm saying is, a guy comes on, the media claims that this is the violent, radical, leftist, Marxist, Antifa guy right here, Kyle Wagner. And, they go to arrest him, and he's got on an Antifa shirt months later. You know what I mean? This is the same guy that was calling for Minneapolis to get your guns. Well, those of us in the movement, those who are conscious and have had to operate within what is called security culture, meaning that a patriot conceives of and is conscious of the threats to American constitutional rights, right? A patriot recognizes those threats. A patriot doesn't fall into line with the tyranny guys, with those who are going to impose tyranny on us. A patriot doesn't fall into line with fascism. A patriot is conscious of their rights and is willing to assert them and defend them. And maybe that might become risky in this country because the republic is being lost to these forces, but they use these provocateur techniques. It's the same thing that happened during No DAPL. The exact same thing. They'll discredit leaders. They'll do anything. They'll take people out. They will neutralize people. You end up dead or a political prisoner if you stay in the pocket, longer than they want you to, or that they allow you to. And I mean, for some, this might sound Alex Jonesy, but just keep your seat open and contemplate all the options, because we would rather be overly cautious and overly conscious and assertive and protective of our constitutional liberties than to squander them, than to think that our rights are in good hands with those people in the government, the collective cabal of corporate shills, people without spines. You know, never mind the color of their party or their political identity or how they've been conditioned to think of themselves. If we're the United States, but we're sending 40, 60 upwards of, you know, I don't even know how many billions or perhaps trillions of dollars have been spent on Israel. No idea. But it's clear to me that they have far more control than we ever thought possible. It's just like the extractive lobby. After No Dapple, after the San was Standing Rock, the extractive lobby, mining, resource extraction, everything aligned with that, made it illegal in 30 plus states to protest or exercise their constitutional rights around what was declared critical energy infrastructure. Everything that happened at Standing Rock, they now made it serious draconian level felonies to be concerned about your clean drinking water. That's all we were doing. And now it's illegal in 30 plus states in the United States of America to support boycott, divestment, and sanctions aimed at being critical of what is an obvious and objective violation of human rights. War crimes are being committed with American weaponry. And a lot of people think Israel is the tail wagging the dog. But I mean, it's probably Western civilization has set up this particular apparatus to carry out its geopolitical ambitions. But it's, you know, it's, we've gone through this on our show. It's our soldiers, it's our families who are being asked to show up. But that, I'm just saying, that's the level at which sensitive, you know, security operations occur, and where people are charged with crimes or put in prison. What just happened with 15 people in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Now, will they actually go to prison? Probably not, and hopefully not. The charges usually begin to be dropped, or they'll offer some attractive plea agreement. That's what happened in my case. I was also charged with felonies during the San was Standing Rock, and then, you know, I had to fight him and let that disturb my sleep for almost 2 years, and then they finally offered something that was attractive that I could live with. But they create any kind of narrative. False narratives, doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter to these folks. Look at Kash Patel. Some months back, and it's crazy how fast the algorithm moves, but they issued this press release, the FBI did, that the members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, an armed indigenous terrorist group, was apprehended in some desert in California, and they had a picture of, like, you know, cars, federal cars intercepting these vehicles. Nobody in their lifetime has ever even heard of the Turtle Island Liberation Front. That they must have made that up, and we laughed about it. Though, like, think of the American Indian movement community, the people who've been targeted by COINTELPRO, and it's dead serious business about what we're facing here. And we've been fighting it for a long time. Native American people, you know, whatever tribe you are, we all know about the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. But we've been fighting these fascist-leaning, tyrannical wannabe despots for a long time. And now the entirety of the United States of America is waking up, and we're all able to see, hey, we have a common enemy. There are people who are trying to call me a terrorist, trying to call me anti-Christian, when we fully respect Christ's consciousness. But the church is not the path of Yeshua. That's another conversation. But they're engaged in a rolling coup, incremental, methodical. No tanks in the streets. You know, Trump will try to put soldiers in the streets, but no tanks in the streets, no perceivable insignia of armed occupation. That the American people are being occupied, but slowly they'll make moves. They'll appoint over 200 judges. They'll throw the bread and circus of UFC 250 right in our face. They'll cause conflicts, potential nuclear conflicts, and act like they're going to go into nuclear conflict. and do it without congressional authorization through the War Powers Act. And they'll just do whatever they can get away with. I mean, ICE, we've spent hours talking about the illegalities of what ICE has done. And we need to think very seriously about the breadth of what is happening in our country and just stay locked in. Don't take your eye off the ball. Pay attention to your local elections. Make sure that your elections are under your control, state control, and pay attention to the progressive movement. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, Native American Patriot Talk, powered by Native Roots Radio. Lock in with us. We invite you. We're your friends, and you are not alone. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with segment number 2. If you want to learn more, if you want to dig in and support the good fight, we not only urge you to support Native Roots Radio and 950 AM Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, but please, you are invited to become a member of Lakota People's Law Project. This is an initiative of the Sacred Defense Fund, all Native led, all Native board organization, a vehicle to assert and defend those truths that we hold to be self-evident and those inalienable rights, all conceivable tribal and American constitutional sovereign rights. We are in the fight for the long haul. Sometimes we've had to get in good trouble. To join the fight in solidarity, go to action.lakotalaw.org, subscribe to our lists, and gain membership.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
It's good to see all of you again in AM 950 listening land. Those of you who are tapped into Native American Patriot Talk or Lakota Law. And the show is also powered by Native Roots Radio. You can listen on Native Roots Radio for a lot more Indigenous-centered content as well. Amazing things going on there that I'm proud to be powered by the organization. And if you were paying attention, we just took a quick break. I was about to get into what is being propounded as a rolling coup, meaning a slow but steady, methodical, and incremental takeover, a seizure of they meaning those who are objectively seen as the radical right, the fringe right, the fundamentalists. They behave no different than the Taliban. If you put them side by side in their zealousness, in their fanaticism, in their wanting there to be only a world for their specific demographic. and the way that they view the world. They want to impose that on others. And so these forces are represented by, I would say, by the Heritage Foundation and by this merger. Now, I don't know if the Peter Thiels of the world, who I know you all saw the leak of like this secret, group of 200 people, who probably think of themselves as the Illuminati, or, just like the people in power. I shouldn't say, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but if you pay attention, you don't have to go down a rabbit hole. You can see that there's people behind the people that we think are running things. There are forces behind the forces that we think are running things. But we're still human beings. We still have authorities within our own God-given rights, our God-given existence, that those are the inalienable rights. Those are the truths that we hold to be self-evident, that those of us who are conscious, those of us who consider ourselves patriots or Americans, those of us who are willing to assert and defend those rights, that those principles, the pillars of who we are as a people, those are under attack and they're under threat right now. Those of us in the progressive field who are being labeled radical leftists. And that is a fair criticism, that people in the left, people in the right say the same things about each other. But if you just rise another level up there, somewhere up there is the progressive community, the progressive world that is looking at these historically, this forced binary where you have to be one or the other. In order to win elections in this country, I understand you got to be one or the other. But you can also extract yourself, transcend that dialectic, that dynamic of these different created identities clashing with one another. Once you can do that's divide and conquer. Once you can get people fighting each other in culture wars, people don't pay attention to why we're bombing other countries, why the war manufacturers are depleting supplies so that they need to replenish supplies. Countries. But the rolling coup, the incremental, methodical usurpation of our very lives, the imposition of fascism, there is no social justice in their world. There is no empowerment of all citizens. There's no, hey, let's respect our differences. Yes, this country has done a lot and been through a lot, but we've all made it here to citizenhood. We've all made it here where the nature, the right of the rights, privileges, and immunities of the United States of America, we are born into them. They inhere in us because of our divine birth in this soil, in native soil. We've come a long way to achieve those rights. And once you achieve those rights, you cannot give up an inch. You cannot let dark forces, tyrannical forces, fascistic forces take an inch. Because if you let them take an inch, if you let them say you can't criticize this or that country or demographic or whatever, or you're going to suffer penalty. If you let them prescribe, as they appear to want to do in their communications, free speech zones, the right to peaceably protest are draconian, tyrannical policies. You have a right to protest that, but just don't get in our way. Fall in line and let us violate and crush your constitutional rights because we consider it to be unlawful. That's what they're doing to the United States of America. That is what is being imposed. It's not just that. The very rule of law, the very respect for an independent judiciary. Why do you think Trump is constantly admonishing, constantly naming federal judges who are they're not antithetical to Trump. They're pro constitutional. They're pro separation of powers, division of powers, a balance, a system of checks and balance. Those judges and everyone else, it doesn't matter if you're a judge on the Supreme Court, at the district court level, a municipality leader, a city leader, you need to know what the United States Constitution is, and you need to know the nature of your rights as a human being. Because they are coming, they're continuously encroaching. That's the rolling coup. Anybody who opposes the administration is declared a political enemy. And not only are these forces destroying political or American democracy, but there are prisons being built, presumably for people that look like me, brown people, but they're also being constructed for political dissenters, political dissidents, those of us who are going to be targeted for indefinite detention, those of us who the regime right now is saying that they need to identify. You know, you take a look at the National Presidential Security Memorandum, NPSM 7, to address counter domestic terrorism and organized political violence. This is coming out of the White House. Again, just the way that reads, domestic terrorism. Who's able to label another a terrorist? Depends on who's in office. Who's able to say there's organized political violence? In the United States of America, there is no organized political violence. Everything they're saying, they're making it up. This whole Antifa, George Soros, you know, like they're going to target, they're going to identify, arrest, prosecute, persecute, and forcibly suppress United States citizens and organizations, nonprofit organizations, social justice organizations, legal organizations, media organizations. They're gearing up for forcible suppression of American people simply for opposing the regime in power. That's what all of the ICE detention facilities are about. That's what declaring war on the enemies within is about. That's what $40 to $7 billion to ICE is about, and targeting those who they declare to be anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Christian. And they pretend like there's some Antifa organization. They're charging people with federal crimes, with federal felonies, saying that they're members of Antifa. There is no Antifa. So with ICE, with the radical leaning fringes of society, the children of the KKK and other paramilitary projections of force. Again, I would recommend everybody read or listen to Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. The paramilitary forces are extremely powerful. That is force projection and the psychology of violence. This is why the United States military are fighting men and women, those who have put it on the line, those who are willing to and have had paid the supreme sacrifice to defend what they thought was our freedoms. That entire demographic of U.S. military veterans is a lot more powerful than that demographic is exercising right now. I've seen it. I've seen it at Standing Rock when 3,000 to 4,000 vets showed up and were going to put themselves in the middle of those who were going to inflict fascistic corporate-sponsored state violence against unarmed Americans, water protectors, who another regime happened to be the orange guy. But it was before that, it was Obama, another regime, another American government usurped by corporate forces, declaring American citizens to be terrorists, declaring me and my family to be terrorists. So think about the seizure of the voter polls. Why is the administration trying to get a hold of voter rolls? Why is, when Pam Bondi was the attorney general, why are they coming to Minneapolis, killing two good Minnesotans, Renee Nicole Good, Alex Preddy, RIP, everlasting? But why, after they terrorize Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota, why are they expressing a quid pro quo saying, if you just give us the voter rolls in places like Minnesota, we'll stop inflicting terrorism and we'll get ICE out of your city if you just give us the voter rolls? So all of this is stacking up. And just Google, I would urge you to Google rolling coup, because this is part of what my algorithm feeds me. The things that I decide to talk about in Native American Patriot Talk. Again, if you're just joining us, this is AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Native American Patriot Talk, powered by Native Roots Radio. If you're locked in with us and you're paying attention, we're trying to demonstrate and lay out the reasons why we perceive there to be a credible, a clear and present and credible threat to the nature of our Republican form of government, our very democracy. Is it a controverted democracy? Is it fair for everybody? No, but it's ours. It's ours. And there are forces at play trying to take that from all of us collectively. So if you're fully engaged in your racial politics or your gender politics or your political identities or any other, or the immigration, any other cultural war thing that is very real to you, very real to me, you have to be able to graduate from that for a second. In order to have these culture war fights, we got to fight the guys who are going to impose tyranny on us first. We got to be a free Republican form of government in order for us to fight over, who should and shouldn't be allowed to go in certain bathrooms. You know what I mean? Very important fights, but there's another level that Americans are being called to momentarily, transcend from that. Just leave it for a second and let's save our republic. All of these tyrannical impositions that are coming from the regime are supported by guys like Peter Thiel. And just look at the Palantir manifesto that came out. We've talked about it on this show. That's what we're trying to do in this show, is give you 10 full episodes that you can listen to and prepare yourselves. Not listen to it and say, hey, someone told us so. I'm not the only one sounding the alarm. People, the non-activist crowd, the people at the different think tanks are sounding the alarm because something very insidious is happening with guys like Peter Thiel or Bezos, who is saying things now like, water for artificial intelligence may be prioritized over human needs. Look at the data centers, a data center near you, just like Dakota Access Pipeline, we're standing up for clean water. If you live in America, they're going to try to put a data center next to you because AI is here. AI is a thing. The world's militaries are already fully operational with AI. So things are going to happen. China has already eliminated 12,000 university degrees that they consider to be obsolete in the new AI economy. That is wild. I see everybody standing up, everybody becoming conscious that, hey, water is life. We do need water. We need water for not only to continue our very lives, but for all of life to continue. We need that. I mean, you got Peter Thiel's elites, you know, the existence of that group being leaked. I'm just going over some things that are being coupled. The technocratic state and those, you know, who emerged from Silicon Valley, who happen to be partial to apartheid regimes in South Africa, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, you know, they're saying these horrendous things, that human life is secondary to the advancement of AI. And AI is here, and it's super powerful. A lot of some people can't even tell the difference between AI and real content when we're doom scrolling online, when the machines, the artificial intelligence and the mineral and the power that it represents have fully sucked us in. It's happened to me several times, and I'm scrolling and scrolling, and I just you literally sigh because you're tired of scrolling. Well, you're pretty much your whole experience online. AI is so deep in everything. I mean, it's not, AI is just not creating, you know, crafty looking pictures and graphics and ads. By the way, don't use it for that. Find a graphic artist, find a human being who can do that, because AI is not the fun parts of AI are the alluring parts of AI to the human being. That's not the primary you know, water user, but I mean, it matters, it all matters. But AI is a very serious situation, and we need to address it. We need to be cognizant of it, because what the average consumer is going to take in is going to be what is presented, like at UFC 250. And between AI and fascistic leaning folks who want to create endless and perpetual servitude of the American people and make sure that we don't have a say in how we feed ourselves, what medicines we take, what vaccines we're going to be forced to take. Again, I don't want to get fully down the rabbit hole, but just be conscious. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to, you know, listen to me propagandize. You can take, you know, a bird's eye view, look at everything that I'm saying, and you're going to find sharp analysis, beneficial analysis out there that supports the positions that we're putting forth in the progressive community. But just a word on the White House. You all saw that complete spectacle. You know, shout out UFC, violence, bloodlust, whatever you want to call it. It's big business. Dana White is a wealthy dude, and Trump seems to like him. And so even though there was a lawsuit filed to block UFC 250, this big giant apparatus called the Claw that was built on the South Lawn, just because there was a lawsuit against it that said that the United States government couldn't put this for-profit spectacle on public land for the benefit of private corporations like Paramount, the UFC, whoever else was financially benefiting from this. And you know, some of the fighters made upwards of $9 million, which is nothing compared to what is done on the upper levels. You know, Powhatan lost. The Native community was sad to report that. But Sean Strickland was banned. And if you don't pay attention to UFC 250, just bear with me for a minute, because Sean Strickland was banned from the White House doings, from the party, because he was critical of Israel, because he called Trump a PEDO. And talk about diminishment and targeting of free speech. You will, just like Voltaire says, you will know who is in power and who your oppressors are, because you won't be able to criticize them. You know, remember that. We've criticized multiple blocks, power blocks, extractive power blocks, Wall Street, just the regular run of business, the course of business in our empire. And I want to end by saying that we've been fighting empire for a long time. We have been fighting tyranny for a long time. So I want to recognize the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Sioux Nation, the Oceti-Sakowee, and any other allies. There were white allies with us. Believe it or not, there were French traders with us. There was other European countrymen and women who were with us fighting tyranny at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, where Custer got sued. This is Custer's last stand. And Custer is kind of like Bibi. He's a butcherer of the innocent. He doesn't follow rules of engagement. They slaughter non-combatants, the killing of women and children, the striking of innocent life. That is a violation of natural law. And that's what Custer did. That's what he did at the Washita. And word got up to us, to the Sioux Nation, to the Lakota, to the Oceti-Sakowee, that there was a butcherer that was not abiding by any rules of the norm. And that's why we went to war with Custer, with the corporate tyrannical forces that put a guy like Custer in office. And I'm about to go over to the national monument at the Little Bighorn battlefield to celebrate victories against tyranny, victories against fascists. World War II, we defeated fascism and we defeated wannabe despots. And we in the United States of America, as we come upon 250 years, this is the final episode of Native American Patriot Talk for now. Powered by Native Roots Radio, always available on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. As we come upon 250 years, let's lock in. Let's see each other as relatives and make sure that our children can live in a world that suits our progressive values. I want to say thank you, Lila Wopila Tanka e Chichapalo. We'll see you again.